I'm really excited about this because I did a case study on this company about 2 years ago when they landed on the scene, making a disruptive difference in real estate in a very positive way. And I did the case study at the time they had become unicorn status. So we are really glad to have with us today Guy Gao, founder and CEO of Side.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, glad to be here. So I did the case study and we can read the website, but in your own words, what is Side? I've called you a platform. I've called you a difference maker. In your own words, who are you?
Well, I thought you did such a great job of profiling Side and were one of the very few people that was right on the nose. But yeah, Side is a real estate brokerage as a service. So it's invisible, white label, real estate brokerage end to end, but it's got no brand that is consumer facing of its own. It is entirely a platform that's behind the scenes. So on top of the Side platform today, you'll have hundreds and hundreds of boutique real estate agencies that are actually owned by the agents who provide the service to that community. And here behind me on my virtual background, you can see many hundreds of them.
That's fantastic. What I thought was really interesting about what you did is there are so many things, that a realtor does, but the number one thing is make relationships with buyers and sellers, and you can't automate that. Someone has to know their neighborhood, know their part of the town, high end, low end, through soccer teams, moms and dads getting ready to buy houses, or through high end experiences at a country club. You got to know your people. But beyond that, there's so many things that can be automated that can make that energy putting into the relationships so much better. And I thought that what you had done was incredible and really, really innovative. What was your inspiration to say, you know what, real estate needs a platform so all these things can be done for the realtors so they can work on relationships and buy and sell and spend the maximum amount of their time making transactions?
Well, first I'll say this, which is not related directly to your question, but I'm going to get right back to it. Is that early on, our key insight was that everyone that was looking to build and innovate within real estate was trying to automate away the agent. And our realization was that you can't really automate away someone who deals in nuance and who services folks in that way. But what was something that seemed like an opportunity for automation was the brokerage operation and infrastructure itself, because brokerage is in effect a clearinghouse that is manually managed on an office per office basis. And Side is the ACH equivalent to that at our core. That's what we do from a technology standpoint. So you're absolutely right, as usual, about that. But the inspiration for Side wasn't born out of the an interest for us to automate something that was being done manually. Rather, it was born out of the fact that we recognized that you had this subset of agents that were already running their own businesses, that were incredibly committed full-time fiduciaries, created a lot more value for their clients than what they actually were taking from them. But they were in the minority in the industry, only representing roughly 30% of transactions or so, while 70+% of the rest of those deals were being handled by part-time, casual agents that weren't very well experienced. And those agents, the ones I'm describing, those high volume committed ones, were already forming into teams and were already in effect running and operating their own business. Our insight, however, was, Tom, that they didn't own that business. They were investing the time, the money, the energy, the effort, taking all the risk, not getting any of the equity upside, in the way that if you're a merchant on eBay or on Amazon, you can use that platform to distribute your product and make money, but you're not really building any equity because the distribution and the brand and destination and all the infrastructure and so forth, and the consumer relationship, the customer relationship, is actually owned by those platforms and not by you. So we said, let's take more of a Shopify approach to real estate and take all of these folks who are running a company and put them in a position where they can actually own that company without having to operate a brokerage from scratch.
I think that's fantastic. And for people that may not be familiar with real estate, if you're listening right now to what we're talking about, think of it this way, is if you've ever seen on Amazon, someone wrote a book, like self-publishing platform, they're starting at zero. No one has bought the book yet. They may be an expert on something, but now they're putting it in a book and there's been no copy sold. Nothing has happened yet. And so Amazon self-publishing allows them to get off and running. What Guy is talking about, think about an author that's built an entire business and they have customers, they have everything going, and yet now that it's built, everybody around them has made money on them fair and square. But from that moment forward, why shouldn't the author get a bigger cut? The publishers have made money when they were a young author, didn't have it. And the same way, I think he's talking about, you've got real estate agents that cut their teeth, get up and going, building relationships. 10 years into it, now they've got a business running with their clientele. The house has made money fair and square up to that point. But from that point forward, why shouldn't they have their own office, their own business, and get the fruits of that and also be the equity participant in that? And that's what I thought was so exciting about what you did.
It's exactly right. A great real estate agent is an entrepreneur first. They wake up every single morning and connect invisible dots that no one is telling them how to approach. There's no instructions to it at all whatsoever. They put up the time, they put up the money, they take on salaries, they employ people, they manage, they help other agents become better at what they do, they mentor. But in the traditional status quo relationship between agent and brokerage, where an agent legally has to be affiliated in order to sell, help buyers and sellers, they don't get any of the equity upside. So our message to those agents when we started Side was, hey, now you can take your own advice for the first time. You can, instead of renting, you can buy, and Side will come in and help you make the down payment.
There you go.
So you don't have to figure out how to actually build a brokerage.
That's fantastic. On Patrick Bet-David's podcast, I'll cover a lot of market stats and I give people down to earth, feedback. And one of the things we've been covering is what's been going on in the real estate market today. So the real estate market may be way down in terms of number of transactions, but it's not zero. It hasn't gone to zero. It's gone down. Interest rates may be up. At right now, I think 7.5%, maybe a little bit down. A week ago, like 7.78, 30-year fixed on a $700,000 mortgage. I think that came down about a half a point this week. There's a little bit of relief there. But what's interesting is that doesn't mean nothing's happening in the industry. Sure, if you're a mortgage broker, maybe the refi market is dead right now, because how do you refi from a 4% that you got 2 years ago into a 7%? That's not good for anybody but the bank. No one's going to do that. So the refi market's out, but there's still transactions happening. How are things going for Side? Because a lot of what you work with potentially is realtors working with cash buyers and working with high end. What do you see the market in America? Because all this bad news is out there. There's got to be entrepreneurs that are focusing, refusing to give up, that are still making it even in this market.
The real estate market in the US is incredibly robust and durable and healthy. This correction is very different than the housing crisis in that the mortgages are sound, and I think it's something in the ballpark of 40% of people who own homes in the US today don't even have a mortgage on them. Right. And the rest of those that do have refied into very low rates that they are locked into. And that's what's creating a supply constraint in the real estate market, in the housing market. The problems are not born out of a lack of demand. The higher interest rates have done very little to dampen buyer demand for homes. What they've done more so is constrain the ability of sellers, or the incentive for sellers, to actually bring their homes to market in the first place.
Got it. So people aren't stepping up in a community, because if they want to step up to something and they've done well in life and maybe they run a business or something, they've recovered from COVID and all that, stepping up is harder because you do have to give up that lower interest rate, and the step up may be not just a little step up, a lot, because of the payment.
Exactly.
And so we have a supply problem, not a demand problem in the U.S., you're saying.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. When homes come to market, for the most part, with some exception, but for the most part, there's still multiple offer scenarios. They're still on market, much less than 3 months on average. It's trading, it's moving, and it's liquid. The constraint is on the supply side, not on the buy side. Instead of doing the traditional upgrading up by buying into a new home, people now are just refinancing out or taking a HELOC or have money in the bank already and are renovating into the home they already own.
There you go.